can you tell us what is dyscalculia and dyslexia and the other terms that, for the ones who don't know, me included?
So within the education system, because that's my strength, we categorize in 4 groups. So, you're going to put me on the spot now. But the 4 groups are cognition and learning. So this is your neurodiversities and your the way that your brain works and able to help you communicate. Communication, which is where autism falls. Under cognition, you've got dyslexia, dysgraphia, dyscalculia, and dyspraxia. I'll come back to them. Under communication, you've got that ADHD, the speech and language. Then you've got physical and sensory and medical, which is your wheelchair users, people with a hearing impairment or a vision impairment, medical conditions such as epilepsy and diabetes, for example. And then the 4th one is social, emotional, and mental health. So this is where your depressions come in and your psychosis and your schizophrenia and conditions like that. So those are the 4 overarching. And then within those 4 overarching, you've got your separate identifications. So you've got your dyslexia, which is dys means you struggle with, or it's a deficit. It's a negative word, dys. But dyslexia is around words and letters. It's very simplified. It's much more complex than that. Dysgraphia is handwriting. So graphic, if you think of graphic. Dyscalculia is numbers. And then dyspraxia, praxia is to coordinate and to move. So those are children who might struggle with catching or kicking or clapping at those conditions. Autism and ADHD overlap a lot, but most people with autism and ADHD would also have those co-occurring. They're very difficult to pull apart. Now, I'm not an educational psychologist or a neurologist, or I'm not a doctor and don't profess to be a doctor. And when I'm working with children, what I'm doing is looking at what are they struggling with. We talked a little bit about how we present in the classroom. So when I'm looking at a child, and actually I'm going to just diversify a little bit, go off the track a little bit about labels. So all of those are labels, and people are really worried about labeling their child. If I look at children who are not identified formally, we use words like lazy, unintelligent, stupid, badly behaved, naughty. And I would rather that if the children are going to have a label, rather than those negative labels which place the blame on the child, that we have a positive label which means we can identify how to help them, how to support them, and how to make them be the best that they can be. So that's the labeling issue. So when I'm looking at a child, I'm saying, right, you can write really well, brilliant, but your vocabulary is struggling, so let's work on your vocabulary. You might be struggling with speech and language, so let's put in some speech and language support. So looking at that specific child, what does that child need, identifying what they struggle with and what they are successful with, and use that to build the support program for them. And that's why teaching is so hard, because one person with autism is one person with autism, and everybody's autism is different, and we all present in so many different ways. There's 4 of us who are known to be autistic in my family, but all of us are very, very, very different. My daughter is very literate. She is very... she's into writing. She can write beautiful essays and be very, very descriptive, very, very different to my literacy. My son is really creative and really good at things like graphic design and media and film. Brilliant mind. My other son is into artificial intelligence and can code and can use all of... So what I've always found interesting is he can code, and anybody that knows anything about coding, you've got to use the right full stop, the right comma, the right bracket, everything has to be perfect, otherwise the code doesn't work. He can do that, and yet would struggle to write my name. So I just think it's just a really different way of thinking. And when you embrace that, phenomenal things happen.